The small town of Harrow's Hollow had never known a storm like it. The sudden deaths, as inexplicable as they were chilling, seemed to haunt every corner of the once peaceful community. First, there was Mabel Jennings, an elderly woman known for her kindness, found dead in her home with a vacant stare fixed on the ceiling. Her body was cold, the room silent, except for one horrifying detail. Her lungs were empty, completely devoid of air, her chest a hollow shell. No sign of struggle, no obvious wounds, just emptiness. Detective Clara Lawson, new to Harrow's Hollow, and with a sharp sense of justice, was assigned the case. On the surface, it seemed like an oddity, but Clara had learned long ago not to dismiss the strange. As she combed through Mabel's life, her family, her neighbors, anyone who might shed light on the oddity, Clara was met with little more than confusion. Nobody had a clear answer. Mabel was loved, healthy for her age, and no one could fathom why her lungs were empty. But that was just the beginning. 2 weeks later, another body was found. This time a local teacher, Charles Matthews. His lungs, too, were empty. This time, a strange odor lingered in the air around him, something like burnt ash. But again, there was no cause of death, no wounds, nothing that made sense. Clara's frustration deepened. She was determined to uncover the truth, but there were no answers, just more confusion. People in town started to whisper, trying to make sense of the growing terror that was sweeping through the streets. Was it a disease, a virus, or was something far more sinister at play? That's when Clara found herself at the local library, sifting through old records and historical documents. The air was thick with dust as she uncovered a strange, forgotten piece of town history, the legend of the Breathless. According to old folklore, centuries ago, a creature existed in the shadows of Harrow's Hollow, a being that could steal the breath from the living. It was said that the creature, a shadowy figure known only as the Breather, could slip into a person's home in the dead of night, drawing the life from them with a single breath. It could not be fought, not with weapons or strength. The only way to stop it was to uncover its origin. The townspeople, over generations, had dismissed it as nothing more than a tale to scare children. But now, Clara wondered if there was some truth to the story. On a hunch, Clara visited the local cemetery, hoping to find any connection between the deaths and the past. She wandered among the weathered gravestones, searching for clues, until something caught her eye. A series of graves, older than the rest. Their stones were cracked, covered in moss, the inscriptions nearly erased by time. But one name stood out: Eleanor Breather, 1852. Clara's heart skipped. Could this be the origin of the creature from the folklore? The name rang through her thoughts like an eerie warning. She needed to dig deeper. That night, Clara went to the sheriff's office to brief her findings to her colleague, Sheriff Dave McAllister. He listened in silence, his eyes narrowed, but he didn't dismiss her theories. There was something about the way he looked at her that suggested he knew more than he was letting on. "What do you think, Dave?" Clara asked, her voice hesitant. Sheriff McAllister ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Clara, but I'm not ready to call it supernatural. These deaths, they don't make sense." He paused, glancing out the window of the station. The night seemed darker than usual. "There's one thing I know for sure," he added quietly. "People have been saying things, whispers about the Breather, but nobody believes them." Clara felt the coldness creep up her spine. The following week, the deaths continued. A young mother, Linda Harris, was found in her home, lifeless and breathless, her infant son clutched in her arms. The sight was enough to break anyone's heart. But what chilled Clara to the bone was the baby's condition. Though he was alive, the boy was silent, his chest not rising and falling as it should have. The town's residents were on edge, terrified that the curse of the breather had returned, but no one could stop it. Clara's investigation began to turn inward, exploring deeper mysteries of the town's past. She found records that connected Eleanor Breather, the name on the gravestone, to a series of disappearances dating back over 100 years. It wasn't just the breather's name on those pages. It was the tale of a cursed bloodline, a lineage that had passed down the ability to steal the breath of others. Eleanor was the first victim, the one who had inadvertently unleashed the creature's power by trying to escape it. The breather wasn't a creature born of darkness. It was an inherited curse. The curse could not be lifted easily. Clara learned that it took years of investigation to uncover the dark truth. The only way to break it was to discover the root of its power, where it had come from. The more Clara dug, the more she felt like she was being drawn into a trap, the same trap that had ensnared the people of Harrow's Hollow for centuries. One night, while researching late into the evening at the library, Clara discovered an old journal buried in the back of the room. It belonged to a former sheriff, one who had investigated the strange deaths years before. As Clara flipped through the pages, she felt her blood run cold. The sheriff had written about a ritual, a dark ritual performed by the breathers to keep their curse alive. The ritual involved taking the breath of the living, one life for another, and it could only be stopped if someone was willing to sacrifice their own. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she read on. The ritual had been attempted years ago, but the sheriff had failed. The town had been saved, but the breather was never truly gone. And now, with the deaths returning, the ritual was in motion once again. Clara knew what she had to do. With the help of Sheriff McAllister, she set a plan in motion to stop the breather for good. They gathered a group of the town's bravest citizens, preparing to confront whatever lay beneath the town's history. They ventured to the very place where the first breather had been buried, an ancient cellar beneath the cemetery, hidden deep within the earth. As Clara descended into the darkness, she felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The air was thick with a strange pressure, like something was waiting in the shadows. But there was no turning back now. They found the breather's crypt, an old stone structure buried under layers of forgotten earth. As Clara approached it, she could feel the weight of history pressing down on her. The ritual was happening now, and they were the only ones who could stop it. With the ritual nearly complete, Clara knew she had to make a choice. The breather could only be stopped by taking one more life, or by sacrificing her own. The curse had to be ended once and for all. Clara's heart pounded as she stepped forward, ready to face whatever horrors the breather had to offer. The last breath was stolen, but it was Clara's breath that saved the town. As the breather lunged forward, Clara took the final step, allowing the darkness to consume her. The creature's power was broken, and the town was freed. In the years that followed, the deaths stopped. The town of Harrow's Hollow, once plagued by the breather's curse, returned to a peaceful existence. Clara's sacrifice became a legend, remembered by all who lived there. The town would never forget the woman who had given everything to save them. But somewhere, deep beneath the ground, the curse still whispered. And though it had been silenced for now, Harrow's Hollow would never truly be safe, because the breather was always watching, waiting for the next soul to take its final breath.